We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek Chav Gimel, volume 23. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Shelach. In this Sicha, the Rebbe asked an astonishing question, seemingly something very difficult in the simple meaning, and Rashi doesn't address it. And it's either that it's self-understood or Rashi has answered it. Anyways, the question the Rebbe asks is, when Hashem said, I will destroy the people for the sin of the Meraglim, Moshe Rabbeinu interceded on their behalf, and he said, Hashem, you can't do this because what will the nations of the world say that Hashem cannot take them into the land of Israel? So that's why he killed them in the Midbar. How could it be that Moshe Rabbeinu, instead of arguing to Hashem that can't destroy the people, those are your people, these are the people, the children of Hashem, he doesn't mention anything about that. Just why would the Goyim say, well, Chilul Hashem is a bad, it's terrible, but how does it compare to Moshe ignoring the fact and not saying anything about, please don't destroy them, like he did by the Egel, even though he said over there too about the Chilul Hashem, Lo Miyimra Hagoyim, but he also first asked to save the Yidden. Over here he doesn't ask that. The Rebbe will explain that sometimes when the Eibishter gives a punishment, the Eibishter is kind. Sometimes the punishment, when Hashem takes away the life of a person, it's vayishchotem, as he says, the Loshen Bamidbar, which is for a benefit of the person, a person who did Averis and is not going to do Teshuvah, so he's going to live a miserable life. So the Eibishter, to protect him, will take away the life from him. So it turns out it becomes like a shechita. The Rebbe says even the Goyim realized that the Yidden had a special dearness to Hashem. They complained is vayishchotim bamidbar. Why did at least the Eibishter not bring him in Eretz Yisrael? And the Rebbe will also bring out, the Rebbe Lezer says that the Deir Hamidbar do have a Chelek in Olam Haba. All those that died in the desert do have a Chelek in Olam Haba. The Rebbe extends it that this should also apply technically to the Meraglim themselves, who died immediately, as we will see in the Sikha. And the Rebbe brings out the Hayroah, that we see that there is nobody too lost and nobody that cannot be saved. But let's go step by step. Aleph. Shoingeret fil mo, we already spoke many times. As Rashi b'pirusha ala Torah, that Rashi in his commentary on the Torah, stellt sich up of jeder inyan, he places himself on every subject, was is schwer, anything that is difficult, or der fodder beer, or that requires explanation in Pshutei Shel Mikra, in the simple meaning of the Chumash. How could Rashi, maybe Rashi doesn't have an explanation, but the Rebbe says, when Rashi hot nit kein hasbara, when there's something difficult, and Rashi has no explanation, if an inyan b'Pshutei Shel Mikra, on a matter which is in the simple meaning of the pasuk, so then he writes, I don't know. He doesn't know. It's similar. So it doesn't mean that Rashi would address, even if he doesn't know the answer, but he still would ask the question. And therefore, since there is places, b'shas men gefint ashverikait in pshat aksuvim, when you find a difficulty in the meaning of the psukim, in the simple meaning of the verses, or Rashi stellt sich nit up of them, and Rashi does not stop and ask, doesn't stand on that to question that, Muzman Zogun, so then we must say, as al pipshute shel mikro, is dos melechatchila kin kashenit. That learning it in the simple, the literal level, to begin with, this is not a question. But al derech hapshat is a smuva ma'atzma, because in the style of the pshat, in the literal level of learning, is a smuva ma'atzma, it's self-understood. Other, or Baldos Verbavorn dur Chafrir Dikun Pirush Varashi, or that this has already been answered through a previous comment of Rashi. Okay, so we know every difficulty. The Rebbe is going to suggest, therefore, there's a problem in Pshat, and Rashi doesn't address it. What's going on? According to this, we need to understand in our Parsha, in Pshat Haksuvim, in which there is a difficulty in the simple meaning of the psukim, which is right in your face. It comes before your eyes, even if a child who's 5 years old learning Chumash. And we don't see that Rashi should answer this. Base. What's the question? No, then the Meraglim haben sich umgekehrt mit Tur Haaretz. After the scouts, the Meraglim, the spies, returned from inspecting the land, und haben gesagt, and they said, Loi nuchalalis el ha'om, ki chazakum mimenu, we won't be able to go up to the people because they're stronger than us or than him. Und die Iden haben nicht gewollt gehen in Eretz Yisrael. So the Yidden did not wish to go to Eretz Yisrael. Hat der Eibishter gesagt, so what did Hashem say? Akenu vadever va'oirishanu ve'ese oischa legoy godl va'otzum mimenu. I will smite him with a plague, with the dever. Va'oirishanu. And you, I will make to a goy godel v'otzu mimenu, I'll make you into a greater people and more greater. Moshe Rabbeinu will be greater than them. Rishenu means I'll make what they own inherit to others because they won't be around. And Moshe Rabbeinu will be the goy godel v'otzu mimenu. Und auf dem hat Moshe gesagt, Moshe said about this to Eibishter, to Hashem, Eshamu Mitzrayim, ki aliso bekoichacha esam hazeh mikirbei. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu answer to Hashem's saying that if the Egyptians will hear that you had brought out with your power this nation from Mitzrayim, you will kill this people as one. So the nations will say, because Hashem does not have the ability to bring this people to the land that he has sworn to them. So he shechted them in the desert. So this is what the Goyim will say, that Hashem is not able to take them. Taki was able to take them out of Mitzrayim, but he's not able to bring them into the Midbar, so he killed them all to Eretz Yisrael, to the land that he promised them. So by Shchotem HaMidbar. He's in ganzen nicht verstandig. So this is totally not understood. Wie kommt es? How come? Was wegen dem Inyan von Akernu Goymer V'Irishenu Goymer von alle Yidden. This idea itself that Hashem says, I will smite and he will get rid of all Yidden, which is Shishim Ribui. We're talking about 660 times 10,000, 600,000. Levad Hanoshim B'Tav, that does not include the women and the children. Un Hanoshim L'matim M'ben Chov, U'Lomayim M'ben Shishim. And also the people that were below 20 years old and above 60 years old. They were not included in the number of Shishim Ribui. So there is so much more of all Yidden that the Eibishter said that he's going to smite, which will come to millions of people. Hat Moshe nicht ausgedrückt, kein gewaltige Teine und wir. Moshe did not express no great argument, no great demand. Und sein ganze Teine ist gewesen nur, and his entire argument was only only that the nations will say that Hashem does not have the ability, etc. That's the only complaint, but he doesn't say anything about the fact, an argument that Abish is going to destroy all these people. Yeah, that ain't their first state. Everybody can understand. Everyone understands. I feel like a kid, even a child, as the Umkum von Azeful mentioned, the death of so many people. But I feel even if we were talking not about Hashem, but even by human being, it's going to touch him. Asach mer be a lot more effective, a lot more vidos was andere willen sorgen wegen him, about what others will say about him, the nations will say, as even a human being, the act itself, destroying and killing so many people. So this is even by ordinary human being. But it's obvious when we are talking about Hashem, and in relation, in connection to those creation that he created them. So we're talking about Hashem and his creation, and certainly, and how much more so, achas kama v'kama, how much more so, b'negeya Eden, as it is pertains to Yidden v'zayin bonim lamokim, their sons to Hashem. He took them out of Egypt, and he chose them as his treasured nation. So much more effective would seem to argue, don't kill them, what are you doing? Instead of saying, what are the others going to say? And here Moshe Rabbeinu comes. He is the one who led the Jews up to this point. He was the one that gave up his life for them. He said, if Hashem doesn't want to forgive me, he says, erase me from your book that you have written. That's giving up. His whole idea of Moshe was Torah. He's ready to give it all up. He says, Hashem, kill me. Don't want to see the bad that's going to happen to the people from the Yidden. So we see how much Moshe Rabbeinu cared. So why is in this argument? Und b'shas der Eibishter zogt, Kenu badever v'irishenu, ve'esa ischol godel. I will smite you with the plague, and I will inherit you, give away everything you're out, and I'll make you, Moshe, to a great nation. Monternit. He doesn't demand, Moshe doesn't say anything. Was heißt umbringen ganz klar Israel? How could you kill all of the entire Jewish people? Seine Kinder, his children, B'ni b'choyri Yisrael. Abraham says, my firstborn is Yisrael. Hoyolisi, this should never happen. But his main argument is, the nations will say that Hashem is not able to bring them in. Why is that argument used, not a direct argument against how could he do such a thing? Now, that's like a terrible thing for going to Seichel Hashem, but it doesn't match up. It should say first, don't kill them, because you can't do that. And on top of that, as the Eibishter said by the Egel. Unaf al pi, as Moshe said by the Egel. Unaf al pi as ve'omru hagoyim. This that the nations will say that Hashem can bring in is an inyan from Chilul Shem Shamayim. It's an idea of desecrating the name of Hashem. But still, Moshe should have begged and demanded the minyan for Nakena B'Dever about the punishment. I'm going to smite them with the plague. Und then noch Moisiv sein, then he should add, as also that there's a Chil Hashem. So while the Chil Shem Shemaim is a terrible thing, but it's not in comparison, Moshe Rabbeinu B'chlal ignoring the fact that the Eibishter is killing them, and he's only talking about the Chil Hashem. Bring a proof and evidence that this is the way it should be, is the way it took place by the Egel, as we find by the sin of the Egel. First, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Loma habaye yechre abcho ba'amecho asher yitzeisom eretz Mitzrayim b'choyach godl v'yot chazoko. Why, Hashem, should your anger flare against your people that you have taken out of Egypt with great power and with a strong arm? That was the first thing, not to destroy them. And only later on he added, why should the Egyptians say that he took him out with bad or berod? As Rashi Taishav, there are a lot of goyim to kill them. So that was the second step. But first he prayed for them. Lo Hashem Yechre. But over here, he doesn't mention anything. He just mentions what the nations will say. Noch mehr is nicht verstandig. It's more not understood. Because as the Pasuk in Rashi explains, it is this argument that the Eibishter accepted. He didn't say the other argument. And that was the argument the Eibishter accepted. The argument of Lomo Yemru Hagoyim. Mizet, we see as Davke Ditainer, that is specifically this argument. V'Omru Hagoyim Goymer had gepoilt, that if that impacted, that accomplished, I have forgiven as you had asked, and the actually negation and the taking away of the Gezeda. As Rashi translates, and Rashi emphasizes, Kidvarecha, Salachti Kidvarecha, Bishvil. Why am I listening? Rashi teaches, why is Hashem listening to Moshe and saying Solachti? It's Kidvarecha. As Rashi says, Bishvil Masha Marta, because that which you said, Pen Yemru Mibilti Yechelos Havaya, so that they don't say that Hashem isn't able to. Uniz Mevayir, and Rashi explains, Shalo Yischalel Shmi B'Magefa Hazois Lamer, so that my name shall not be desecrated in this plague, to say that Hashem is not able to bring them. So therefore Hashem is saying, I won't kill them all of a sudden at once, but delay it over the 40 years, little by little. And that's why they died in the desert every year, those who reached the age of 60. But the Eibishter accepted this argument. So it's not just a question that we have, but why Rashi doesn't say anything about it. As Rashi is also that we don't find that Rashi says an explanation about this. And the Rebbe's key of the answer is that in the discussion, When Moshe Rabbeinu says Lomo Yemri, he says Vayishchotem, which seems like a non-usual language. Should have said Vayemisen or another language or Vayakim Bamid. Why Epes Vayishchotem? Gimel. That's the key to understanding what is going on here and why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't pray for that, and it's only the other part of the Lomo Yemru which accomplished to change Hashem's desire to kill them, and not all at once. Gimel, but man does verstehen behagdim dem shinu loshen in Siyum for Moshe's rate. We'll understand it by introducing the change of language in the end of the words of Moshe. V'omra goyim goymer. It says vayishchotem b'midbar. So he says he shecht them in midbar. But das is l'chayre nit kein loshen hamurgel b'negei la'anoshim. It's not the usual language talking about people say he shechted them. By people you say, by animals you shecht. By people you say you kill, ubefrat. And especially within this psukim itself, there's different languages. As Moshe Leinot Freir gesagt, Moshe Rabbeinu said earlier, "Vehemato es ha'om hazeh." He says, and you will kill. He says, "Hemato." Und der Eibishter hat gesagt dem Loshen, I can, but David. The Eibishter said the language, I will smite him. So it would be more fitting for him to say, "Vayamisem b'midbar" or "Vayakim b'midbar." So why does Rashi use? Why does the pasuk use Loshen vayishchotem? Yesh loimer habir b'zeh. So the Rebbe says we can say the explanation mit dem Wort, with this word chidush inyan vayishchotem, the novelty, the concept of shechting, that move on. That explains. We understand. Why did he not demand and argue to Hashem wegen them about this? Which the Rebbe's question asked was the Eibishter had gesagt akenu badever, I will smite him, the people with the plague. Why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say anything, and he hinted that with saying the words vayishchotem. Because the concept of shechita is actual elevation for the animal. So there is a use of vayishchotem means it's actually to the benefit. The inyan fun shechita by a bal chai, what is the idea of shechting when we talk about an animal? Is vidos versteht euch ben chomesh. That's also understood by a 5-year-old. Ados is machshir den bal chai. That prepares the animal as soll sein roy for a Michael Odom, that he should be fit for human consumption. Das heißt, this means the tachlis von shechita, the goal, the purpose of shechting is nid the misa v'hariga. It's not the killing, the death and the killing, nor verkehrt, but the opposite. Durch them, through the death and the killing the animal, the shechting the animal, kumt zu a hecherkeit to meile in dem balchai. It comes, it's added an elevation and an advantage in the animal. Und wie man hat schon gelernt früher bei der Akeda, as we had learned earlier by the Akeda. As das, was Avram is gegangen, lischheit es benoi, that Avram went to shecht his son, he does give van ausführen dem Tzivu Hashem. Why did he go shechten? That was to fulfill the command of Hashem. To bring him up from oil. It wasn't going to just kill him. It was going to bring him up to a higher level. As korban kodesh zum Eibishter, that he's going to be a holy korban to Hashem. Similar is in our case, the vayishchotem is not a destructive, but rather it's an elevation. The Rebbe explains, Dalit, that's what in them, the explanation of this. As is Yadua, move on. Oichin Pshutei Shel Mikra, it's known and it's understood also in the simple meaning of the pasuk, V'kama v'kama ksuvim, in many and many verses, as the Eibishter is Arachim B'chanon, Hashem is compassionate and caring. Tachlis hatoiv v'hachesed, he's the ultimate of good and kindness. Und als alle Zivuyim was der Eibishter hat angesagt zu Bnei Adam Bechlal, and that all the commands that Hashem has instructed people in general, all people, which would include even the Bnei Noach, the Mitzvah Noach, but Valachas Kama V'Kama, but how much more so for sure, the mitzvahs was gegeben zu Yidden namens Gula, those mitzvahs that he gave to Yidden who are his treasured nation. Seinen L'Tevosom von Diva Seinen Nitztave geworden. It's for the benefit, for the good, for those who were commanded them. Durch dem was mefirzich loit tzivue Hashem. Through this, that you conduct yourself according to the instructions, the commands of Hashem, is their leben ba'olam hazeh v'ezdarf zu sein euch in gashmi. So their life in this world is as it needs to be, also physical. Ule dugma, as for example, wie gesagt, as we say, im bechukoisei telechu, bes mitzvoisei tishmoidu, when we follow and we go in the statues and we keep the mitzvahs, the pasuk says, v'nosati yishmeichem be'itom goyme, then I will give your rains in a timely way. So physically, when you follow the instructions of Hashem in the Torah, so then you get the physicality also. With the alle brachas was the Torah rechem tois, with all the blessing that the Torah enumerates them. Von dem versteht man liider gisa. So from this we can understand on the other side. As when men folk need them obershtus sivuyim, when we don't listen to the commands of Hashem, then there is punishment. Kimefurish in Torah, as explicit in Torah, that when you violate and you don't listen to the command, then there is punishment. But is nicht the kavone der einish gufa. So it's not the intent, the punishment, just for the punishment. In order to take revenge, God forbid, in the mention, and the person take revenge for him, or just to punish him just like that. But that's for the benefit of the person, which means since he did not conduct himself in a fitting way, as Hashem commanded, that's the only time a person lives life which are fit for the name. Real life is when you live your life fitting to the commands of Hashem. That's both your spiritual life and your physical life are fit when you go and follow the Tzivah Hashem. But if a person did not conduct himself, and he violated sins, especially serious sins, so in order for him not to have a painful life in this world, he might say, if this is, why do I need life? It doesn't. Well, noch better. Sometimes he says the language is katzti b'chaye, as the language that he uses if he's going to marry from the B'nai Kanana Shneichi B'kirbei. He said, Yitzchok said katzti b'chaye. So, person is disgusted with their life. So sometimes, in order a person shouldn't be in a situation in which he's living a painful life, on Katsi B'chayi, nem der Eibishter Ba'im zu de Chaye Olam Hazeh. Hashem takes away from him the life of this physical world. That is for the benefit of the person. Thus, farmaid, this prevents him as only that he should not have to go through a very difficult life in this world. Rashi already explained earlier, and something even more greater novel than this, that Hashem sometimes takes away the life to prevent from pain. And in that case, it's even a greater novelty. Avram Avinu, which was a tzaddik gomor yirei elikim v'chulu v'chulu. Avram, our father, who was a complete tzaddik, feared Hashem. Kirei elikim ata, as the pasuk says about Avram, etc., etc. So it says that Meis Hey Shonim Koidem Zmanei. He died 5 years before his time to die. Kidei only Toben Chayid Sar. So he shouldn't have painful life in this world from Esav's conduct. So Hashem took him away 5 years earlier. So that's, even if he didn't do it's not for an Aveira, but just a Tsar from Esav, the Abishah took him away earlier. But when we're talking in our case, person who does an Aveira, as in our case with the Yidden, with the Meraglim, they didn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. Kumtsu is added as dos der Einish Misa Rachman l'Islam. Not only does he not need to suffer in this world, but that punishment of Misa, God forbid, is in Metayr u'Mezacher, that cleans him and that purifies him, it refines him. As a Zoltenan Tzukumen to the Chayim Nailim for Olam Haba, that he should be able to reach to the elevated life in the world to come. Bus he also learned about the life in the world to come in Rashi, as the Rebbe points in various different psukim. So this concept that Hashem takes away a life to help the person not to suffer in this world, or in addition, to purify the person so she can come to Chayalim Haba. So it turns out that it's not something which is just a punishment, but it's actually to the benefit. Hey, is verstandig benegeye dem chet von Eden beparshasen. Based on this, it's understood as it relates to the sin of the Eden in our parsha. Was Moshe hat in seiner Rede nicht matgish gewend the Taine, that Moshe Rabbeinu in his words did not emphasize the argument kegen dem etzem akenu von Eden, that he did not in his argument emphasize against the punishment itself von Eden, was getan b'chet ha'egel, as he did it by the sin of the egel. And the Rebbe explains now that the difference is by the egel the Eden could do teshuva, so there is an argument against that punishment. But over here, it was such a level and it was such a grave sin and the lack of emunah that there was no tshuva here. So therefore, it was actually vayishchote, it would be an elevation. The Rebbe explains. B'shas the Yidden ham gesindig b'chet ha'egel, when the Yidden sinned by the sin of the egel, hat Moshe mispalel given to the Eibishter, he davened to Hashem, Moshe, Loma Hashem yechra abcha ba'amecha asher yitzeiso meretz Mitzrayim. Why should your anger flare, Hashem, against your people that you've taken out from Mitzrayim? And what is the meaning? Ze kennen sich doch umkehren zum Eibishter. They have the opportunity to return to Hashem. Tshuvaton, they can do tshuva. Bedos mechaper zayin, so that will atone. So therefore, their life in this world would be able to be from here and on wie es darf zu sein, the way it needs to be. Nitkin chaye tsar, it won't be a painful life, a life full with pain. But they will follow the Tzivui Hashem. They will listen to the Tzivui Hashem because they can do tshuva. That's why over there his argument was, why Hashem do you want to destroy? Hashem kindo by Chet HaMeraglim, as opposed to here when we're talking about the sin of the Meraglim, with the Eibishter Zogt, what does Hashem say? Ad ono yenatzuni ha'omazeh. How long would this nation get me angry? But how long will they not believe me in me, notwithstanding all the signs that I have done amongst them? Because in them is mudgish, over here it's emphasized. Aleph, in this argument of Hashem about the Jewish people, Ados is nitken ein moli kezach. It's not something which was a one-time thing. Nor der ad ono. How long will they make me angry? That it is in a kaseditik and ofen. This is in a constant way. Uns ist bei sie nicht geworden, kein shinu letoiva noch die alle frierdike chatoim. And there was no change for the better after the previous sin. So it's a continuous ad ono base. And number two, the severity of the sin, this is nicht stam an over zayin of tzivui Hashem. It's not just generally violating, transgressing Hashem's command. Nor achet was on in them inyan yisoidi v'ikri. It's a sin rather that touches the main, the foundation and the main funamunam. That is the belief. Ad ono lo yaminu bi. How long will they not believe me? His movement is understood as in them followed Moshe nit was zu beten mitzad the Eden Gufa. So it's understood that he doesn't need to ask for the Eden themselves. He doesn't just that to protect them. Vibald as because that's going to be their benefit. Vibald as there akenu badever ve'orisheno. Because this that Hashem says, I will smite them by Dever and Risheno, is nitzulibun oynesh farzich. It's not just to punish them for itself, nor is l'toivosom kinal baruch, but it's for their benefit. Und da sagt Moshe, dass Moshe vayishchotem. He shecht them. Says nit aharigerachmon l'slar, not killing. Nor ainye for shchita. It's a shchita elevation. What is the toivas dem nishchat, which is to the benefit of the one of a shech. Das is moishech, ein v'shachat elo umoshach, which means this is moishech. This pulls him mirshus to rishus, from one domain to the other domain, from the bad makes him to good. Who's in him on is in mailet zahachen leba. This elevates him to a higher life. Kayan neshama ba'olam haba. The life in the world to come. So what is then the argument? So that's not the argument. So Moshe's time is over given. Moshe's argument was, however, why is that if the whole reason is because the Yidden don't believe, but now the Egyptians won't believe. So it's going to be the Chil Hashem is going to be from the what we're trying to prevent, the lack of emunah that's going to actually bring about a lack of emunah in the other side. Moshe's time is over given. Moshe's argument, however, was Bibald as der Iker Chisoren is do given. That had their emunah, since the main lacking here was the lack of belief. Those was lo yaminu be, the fact that they don't believe me. Despite all the wonders that I've done amongst them, as Rashi says that we should call on nisim shosisi lohem, because all of the miracles I've done for them, hoyo lahem lahamin, They should have believed that I do have the ability to fulfill my promise to bring them to Eretz Yisrael. So, vos faran ort hodo der einish. So the argument is, so what kind doesn't really fit in this place the argument from the punishment from Hashem from Ve'amata Sa'ish Alma Zek Ish Echad. You will kill the people as one. Vibal dos vet goyrem sein, since this will cause themselves chisorin from heder hamuna, the same lack of belief by the Mitzvah. Was haben gesehen? They saw via Lisa bekecha chasoma zemi that you brought up these people from amongst the Egyptian. Umba hagoyim asher shomu shimacho. So both by those who the Abishta took them out from Mikirbai, from the Egyptians, and also by these nations, asher shomu shimacho, they heard about Hashem. What are they going to say? That because Hashem does not have the ability to bring them to the land that He swore to them, as der Eibishter ken chas v'sholem nit mekayim zayin haftachos v'shvosei, that God forbid that Hashem cannot fulfill His promise, His shvua, His oath. So what does this mean? That means, dos heist, V is shaykh. How could you say that by smiting them, you're strengthening emunah? V is shaykh as the rakena but dever. That this smiting them but dever is all about warn and vermeiden. That this is going to forewarn, and it's going to prevent them in from chayser emunah v'chet. By Yidden, that the lack of Amunah and the sin by Yidden, Uboip is man good. At the same time, what are you causing? Aleph Heder Amunah by the Umis, a lack of belief by the nations. Ubemela, and therefore Oich dem Heder Hashmi v'Hakiyum, and this will also bring to the lack of listening and fulfillment. When the Tzivuya Hashem was the Umis Zainen of Zayin, it started going for those commands of Hashem that the nations were commanded on them. So that is what Moshe Rabbeinu's taina to Hashem is, that you can't smite them, not because it's going to be a lack of emunah, what you're trying to prevent this is supposed to make up because of the lack of emunah, hein lo yaminu bi, and that's why you want to smite them. But that is going to bring a lack of amunah and a lack of akiyum by the nations of the world. The two things, Adonai Yinatzunim Leishmu V'Koili. Same thing is going to happen by the nations. That was the argument. Okay, so the Rebbe learns, though, that the key is because it says Vayishchotem, so Moshe Rabbeinu was saying that this was not just killing. This is Vayishchotem, so therefore he's not asking not to shech them, because shechting is an elevation for them. They'll reach the higher levels. It'll atone for them. They won't live chayitzar. But the problem is, the Rebbe is going to speak now, that that's Vayishchotem is in the words of the nation. Vayishchotem. Why are the nation? It would be more fitting that in Moshe's words to Hashem, he should use the word Vayishchotem. But why are the Goyim saying this? The Rebbe will explain that even the Goyim understood it was Vayishchotem Bamidbar. Let's look inside. Zayin. You can, however, ask the Loshen Vayishchotem. The language of Vayishchotem is doch nicht von der Rede, was Moshe allein sagt. These are not words that Moshe is saying. Nor sagt es in a dibur, but he's saying it in a saying, was the Goyim wollen sagen, that the Goyim will say Vayishchotem. V'amru hagoyim, the goyim, b'gilti cheles havaye goyim, v'yishchotem, he shechted them. Leider habone kosal kadaito for the goyim, but it would seem that according to the understanding and the thought of the goyim, is the hakenu bedever nit given zu libcheit b'nei Yisrael tevosam. They didn't interpret it that this was a sin of the Yidden for their benefit, because bedugmas in ashchita, ze zon zayin muchen l'chaye elam haba. There, so which means there's a positive thing to do by Yishchota. In their mind, they're saying Hashem can't take out them. No, the Pharaohs built the Chilos Havaya Goimer. Rashi says they're not saying that this might be a positive reason. They're saying Hashem is not able to take them out. Rashi says, when they hear that you kill them, they're not going to say that they sin to you. But what they'll say is she connect them against the Egyptians. You were able to wage war. Against those who sit in the land, you don't have the ability to wage war. So why do we say the language of Vayishchotim, which implies that it's for a more higher reason? That's not what the Goyim said. Melev, Moshe Rabbeinu would have said that. The Rebbe says, "B'pashtus yesh loymar." Moshe stuck it in the words of the Goyim, but it was his words. As Moshe does gesagt b'toich diburim, that Moshe said it within their words to meram zayin, in order to hint for vos men zol sich rechnen mit amiras hagoyim. Why should we consider what the Goyim said? Since Akenebadever is an idea of Shchita, which is for the good, as only it fell the Emunah Ba'avaya Ba'idin, so that it should not be lacking Emunah Ba'Shem by the Yidden, and that as doch nit as from them Gufa soll kommen an Inyan von Hepach HaToiva, which is Moshe's argument, then it's not fitting that from that Shchita should come out an idea which is opposite of the good, Hepech Hamuna, which would bring to against the belief, Ein Yecheles Havaya by the Umas Kenal. As I said before, they will come to the conclusion Hashem is not able to. So we could be learning that this is what the Vayishchotim that Moshe Rabbeinu put in the words for this hint to explain why Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that the Eibishter should consider what the Egyptians what the people will say. The Egyptians, the other ones, but all of them will say. That's not sufficient, this explanation that this is Moshe's hint. But is doch asach mer masim. In the end of the day, it's much more fitting as zogen dem loschen by Yishchotim is eine eigene Rede zum Eibishter, that he should say by Yishchotim in his own words to Hashem, in which he wants to say that this is meant to make an aliyah, but Hashem is not going to accomplish that by bringing lack of a monitor to the goyim. Then eignet zum Eibishter. Und nicht, bei Miras Goyim wird mehr gepasst der Loschen, by the goyim saying it would have been more fitting, Horgam by Midbar Kiral, he killed in the Midbar. Dem Guf is Buchach, so from this it's evident, as Moshe der mit gemeint, what Moshe meant over here, euch die goyim wollen verstehen. Also, the Goyim will understand that this is an inyan from Vayishchotim, that is for a benefit of the Tovas B'nai Yisrael. But if it's their benefit, Why are they saying Bilti Yechelos? Und Afal Pikei Belen sie sagen Bilti Yechelos Abai Gomer. And still, while they know that the Eibishter could be killing them, or it's Vayishchotem, it's a benefit for them, and still they can say, no, Hashem has not able to take us out. How so? Und der Tambaze is Mudgish, and then was the Posik is Madgish. And the reason for that is emphasized in the verse emphasized by Yishchotim, by Midbar, he shechted them in the desert. Ches. Voinyan. So the idea is like this. The Arichas in Divrei Moshe, what is the length in the words of Moshe? V'omru al Yoshev ha'oretz hazois, and they will say to the people that sit in the land, Shomu ke'ato havaye b'kerev ha'om hazeh, they heard that you, Hashem, are amongst this nation. Sherayin ba'ayin nirev, eye to eye, you who have appeared goymer. Brengt arois, so this expresses as the Umas weisen wegen Goydel Hachiba von der Meibersten zu Yidden. The nations know the special love, the great love, the great dearness from Hashem to the Yidden. They didn't recognize in you that love from them up till now, they haven't experienced that. Und als sie wissen euch von dem Ebersten Schwur hereinbringen die in den Eretz Yisrael, they also know that Hashem promised to take them into Eretz Yisrael, wie steht weiter in Hemshech Dvarav Shel Moshe, as the continuation of the words of Moshe to Hashem, he says that Hashem says that he's taking them into Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, wissen them Goydel Hachiba von dem Ebersten zu Yidden. They know the great dearness of Hashem to the Yidden. Wegen der Shelach Nisam La'aretz, and the Shvu to take them into the land. Betzich by the Umas, Oiplegen, so the Umas will make sense to them. As a film and Eden Zainin in a matzav, that even when the Yidden are in a condition, in Belcheres Montzach Dan Hoge from Vayishchotim the Tevosu Canal, that it is expected the conduct of Hishechtem for their benefit, von deswegen, weil der Eberste Lechole Reish der gedarft hereinbringen gleich in Eretz Yisrael. Still, Hashem should have brought him immediately into Eretz Yisrael. He promised them to take in Eretz Yisrael. So while they're lacking, Hashem should have brought them in as it was set up to begin with. To fulfill his promise, his oath. Und auch der Knesset, after they enter, soll ausgeführt werden beoretz in the land that erkenu badever. He should, in the land, he should smite them badever to elevate them to Vayishchotem. But if the whole people will be put to death as one person, so durchgeführt werden beim Midbar, it's becomes the Midbar. Well, the Goyim sagen, the Goyim say, das ist Taka Ninyan von Vayishchotem. It's Taka elevation. Hakol b'derech chiba. Everything is in a level of this deer. But those was the Zach is vorgekommen in Midbar. Why did it take place in the Midbar? Und hat sie nicht reingebracht in Eretz Yisrael. Why didn't they bring him in Eretz Yisrael? It's because Hashem is not able to bring the people to the land. Asher nishba lohem, that he swore to them. Okay, so that's why it says there by Yishchotim, that even though they know that it is Vayishchotim, but still, why happened in the Midbar? They say that Hashem cannot do it, Mebilti Yecholos. And that is the Chilul Hashem, and that's the argument of Moshe. So now the Rebbe says, so we see that this Akeno Badever is by Yishchotim. So that means that all those that died in the Midbar were in the level of Shechita, which means they got an elevated level, and that means that they have Olam Haba. Test. Pia Malcolm is. So based on the above, it turns out as the Akeno Badever from Deira Midbar, when it says smiting them Badever from the generation of the Midbar, is an inyan from Vayishchotim. It's an idea of shechting them. Hachone, preparation of Zecha Zayin L'chayil Mabo, so that they can marry the world, life of the world to come. And for them is move on. If this was the argument what Hashem wanted done, so if L'chatchila the Vayishchotim is to elevate them, so it's understood Mimakolshkin as Zoy is those given Kshabov Poil, that this is the way it took place when they came down in actuality. In them was as is given, I can when this mighting took place during the 40 years, that it was an elevation over there. Was dos is masim midas Rabbi. This fits the opinion of Rabbi. As doir hamidbar boim heim loilam habo, that the doir hamidbar will come to the world to come. Was men meint chaya neshama beguf, which we're talking about, the life of the soul and the body. But chiyas hamesim, they will have chiyas hamesim. Move on from Kama Mekemis and Zoyer. It's also understood as such from many places in the Zoyer. Biz state in Medrash and in Zoyer. Says the Medrash and also in Zoyer, Ados is their tam. Kavos Moshe is nita rein in Eretz Yisrael. The reason Moshe didn't go into Eretz Yisrael, when he's geblieben in Midbar and he remained in the desert, Kidei Erzol Zayin Zusammen Mitzei, so that he should be together with them, with the Der HaMidbar. And to stand up together with the Der HaMidbar in Tchias HaMeisim, and to enter Yisrael with them in the future to come. And their klal is, so this is the way it's in the Zohar. So when we have a machlokes in the Gemara and in Zohar, we rule like the Zohar, look like the Kabbalah. The klal is, the rule is, as vu es is do amachloikes enigla the Torah, where there is a disagreement in the revealed part of Torah, paskent men v'eshteit ba'agoda. Then we rule like it says in the Agoda, in the Zohar u'kiyotzeba. Ubefrat, especially as benidin the dan, in our cases from the Gemara Gufa Mashma, in the Gemara itself, it sort of appears as the halacha is Rabbi Lazar, the halacha is Rabbi Lazar. But the Gemara brings of Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara brings Rabbi Akiva was halt as Eidlam Chelek Leilam Haba. He says they don't have a part in Leilam Haba. He disagrees with Rabbi Lazar. So the Gemara says Shofko Rabbi Akiva Chasidusay, that he left his righteousness and he condemned them to not having Leilam Haba. So the Gemara sort of is almost critical of Rabbi Akiva. So that means that the Gemara is alluding to the fact that the halacha remains like Rabbi Lozda have a chelek mabo. Yud apia hanal v'ing the insha Torah b'chlal, based on we said earlier about generally the punishments of Torah v'ing pirush inyan v'yishchotim, and how we explain the idea of v'yishchotim is move on. So it's understood as nit nor der deir hamidbar b'chlal. It's not only the generation of the Midbar, the other people that live there, but it includes the spies as well. That the general people have a portion of the world to come. Also the Meraglim themselves. They had their punishment immediately. These those who Meraglim, they spoke the bad of the land and they died by the plague. They have a portion of the world to come. As in their Mishnah in Bavli, although in the Mishnah in the Bavli in Sanhedrin state as Meraglim Eilam Chelek Leilam Haba, They don't have a portion of the world to come. Shnemer vayamusu goimer. It says vayamusu b'elam hazeh and b'magev l'elam haba. So the Mishnah says they don't have both, not in elam hazeh and also b'magev and elam haba. Is over mashma in Zoyar. However, it appears in Zoyar as Zoyar say that also the meraglim hab machelek l'elam haba have a portion of the world to come. So therefore, so based on this, we can say as Oichin Babli, that Oichin Babli is just not a Stam Mishnah Lekula Alma. It's not a Stam Mishnah which would go according to all opinions. So there's no machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva whether the Meraglim themselves, in other words, everybody would agree that I don't have Elam Haba, nor those was Rabbi Lezer, nor those was Rabbi Lezer zokt. But when Rabbi Lezer says, when he's talking about the Torah Hamidbar, and he says they do have a Chelek Leilam Haba, the Rebbe says that this would apply also to the Meraglim themselves. About them it says, gather to me those righteous ones, those who formed a covenant with me together with an offering. So this is Rabbi Lezer says about the Der Hamidbar. So this is not just referring to that, the Der Hamidbar, but also to the what says before about the Meraglim themselves. But tzitzich nit nor oif lefonov, not just on what says right beforehand about the Der Hamidbar, the Der Hamidbar, nor oif lifnei fonov. Also, that's talked about before the Der Hamidbar about the Meraglim themselves. It says Meraglim ein lam chelek le'olam haba. And the Rabbi Lezer is saying, no, they do have a Chelek Le'olam Haba. So it turns out that that Mishnah that says in the Babli that they don't have a Chelek Le'olam Haba is not a Stam Mishnah. That would be, but Rabbi Lezer disagrees. But move on from Teichen HaPosuk. Also the contents of the Posuk that was Rabbi Lezer bring that should include also the Meraglim himself. What does it mean? Gather me the righteous one, those who formed the covenant together with a korban, is referring to those who were mekabel the bris by Mar Sinai, with the Meraglim himself were there as well. Was main v'Rashi taich. That what does it mean? The pasuk. They formed the covenant of Hashem together with the offerings and the shlomim. The Ksiv, as the pasuk says, by Matan Torah vayizbuchu zvachim shlomim. They offered the zvachim shlomim. Uksiv vayisrek al ha'om, and he sprinkled from the blood. Vayomer hine dam habrisa shekorasa vayemachem. Behold, this is the blood of the covenant that Hashem formed with you. So this pasuk would apply to the Meraglim. So the Meraglim seinen Gewen zwischen die was they were also there. Shas Matan Torah, time Matan Torah. So the pasuk should be applying to them as well. The fate from the Meraglim alone. Although the sin of the Meraglim himself is given harber and neg was more serious and worse with the hate from Klolus Deir Hamidbar than the sin of the general generation of the Midbar. Bald Ober as the Inyan Habris, since the idea of the covenant was Nemtarain Oich the Meraglim, that includes also the Meraglim. So we see about a bris. What is the bris? A covenant is kemoshel, bringing down from the Likutei Torah. The idea of a bris, two people that love each other, they form a covenant b'neihem, amongst them. The reason they form the covenant, they want to make sure that that love shall never cease. Perhaps this item which brings them together is going to cease. So then love will be bottled also. But by forming the covenants, their love would be an eternal love. Is move on. It's understood as a feeling azam matzav, that even in such a condition, when Ein meise bepoilis men sheloiki de boyi. So even in action, they're not proper. There's still a bris there, still a covenant. Biz al pi hatam vadas, to the extent that according to the reason, the rationale, that love should have ceased, or sinner, or to cause some hatred, is their hate from the Meraglim, as this is the sin of the Meraglim. The light, the Avetz Vision, the Kurdish Abris, the love amongst those who form the covenant, with the Zelbun Toikim Bishas Abris, with the same force at the time they made the covenant. Because they came into that covenant and they tied themselves, it's as if they became one flesh. And as this Mashal Hashem did for us, He brought us into this covenant. So the Maraglim are in the covenant also. The Kol Anal is the all of the above is the lesson. As Medarf cooking of Yeder Eden, that you need to look on every Jew. In Vos Fara Matzav Ezol Zayin. No matter what condition is, Afilu Venes Duchtzich Hazer is Azoy B'di Meraglim Rachman L'Islam. Even when it appears you think that he's like the Meraglim, God forbid. Darf Ben Nefim Kukun Zen. You need to look on him and see as Mitzad Zayin Emeser Metzias, that his true existence is an Einer from Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelek Lelam Haba. He's one of all the people that have a part in the Elam Haba. Doesn't matter. He's part of the planting of Hashem, which Hashem praises himself. So that's why you occupy yourself with him to bring out that his true existence, that should be openly in his day-to-day life. Thus spoiled. And this accomplishment accomplishes, it impacts us, that all the nations see that you, Hashem, are amongst these people. Hashem, you see eye to eye. Everybody knows a way of love. They don't recognize that your love has somehow been taken away till now. And therefore all nations support, help. Yederin, every Jew, and Ali, and all Yid, B'cholam, Mitztarech in all that they need. Biz, to the extent the kings will be your raising the children, V'soroseyim, and the women, the Soris, Menikasayich will be the nursing. Noch in Sevisman Hagolus, still in the end of the time of exile. This is noch mehr Memayr bis Mashiach Tzidkenu. This further hastens the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. V'chabet Mesaken Zaynes Oilom Kuloi, who will fix the entire world. Lavedus Hashem beyachad, to work Hashem all together. Shenemar goes epic el amim sofa berura. I will turn to all the nations a very clear language. Likre kulam b'shem Hashem. To serve him with one shoulder altogether. The Rebbe has a note here with the Vav, Ule Avde, Lavde, that's different. The Pasuk and the Rambam, there's various times in different psukim are quoted, and the Rebbe discusses that in Ha'ara. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parsha Shelach, Tavshin Mem, and Matzoi Shabbos Kodesh, Chukas Ubolok, in Tavshin Lamed Tes.